Welcome everyone. This workshop is offered by the MBA office. The first part will be on interviewing etiquette, and it will be delivered by myself, Dr. Maggie Boyraz, and Dr. Ying Chen, who is here as well, followed by a short webinar workshop on resume building, prepared by Professor Mel Bakeman, also from the management department. So myself and Dr. Chen are affiliated with the Speaking Center, a wonderful resource here. It is a center provided by the Jack H. Brown and paid partially by student fees from CSUSB. So it's a resource for the whole campus. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
I can do it.
Okay, here. Sure. So the first part of today's workshop will be on dress code, professionalism. But before we get to it, are planning to go to the business networking event next week. Maybe if we could see the screen with participants. Okay, well, let's see right now. Okay, so if you are planning to attend the event on April the 20th, SMSU building, it's in the afternoon or not, sooner or later you will be on the job market, being for internships or professional positions. We will be discussing how to dress for success for job fairs and interviews, and discuss top interview questions, and then go over elevator pitch in more detail. Next slide. Okay. Is to discuss the difference between business formal and business casual attire. I use this image to illustrate the difference between more attire, business formal, where it is about pantsuits, matching jackets, more darker colors. Imagine Hillary Clinton pantsuit, right? This is a more polished look with dark shoes and more conservative jewelry and no perfume, right? So when you go to a job fair or interviews, you should not use strong or simply because the smell evokes emotion. So you want to evoke, you do not want to evoke emotions when you are interviewing, right? Business casual is also a clean look with slacks, blazers, coordinating colors. However, it still does not involve jeans, sneakers, or tank tops, right? So that is worth remembering. Whenever going to a job interview, job fair, class presentation, business casual at the least is recommended. So this is more of a corporate kind of a look, right? But we have different organizations, different cultures, different sorts of settings. May I have next slide, please?
Yes.
So I want images and ask you questions. Actually, one at a time. It's an animation. Thank you. Would you? This is a professional look. Yes or no, and why? You can unmute yourself. You can put in the chat. We're monitoring the chat.
Yeah.
I'd say it's like just below being.
Looks like a professional look, but I'm not sure about the man bun though.
I'm not sure about the man bun.
A man bun. Okay, I see. Okay.
If you put the suit down, I mean, even everything looks bright, aside from the fact there's no tie, so it's like almost business professional, but still the casualness left in there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
We're getting comments, yes, blazer, neat grooming. Somebody else says no.
No.
Somebody says, yeah, it seems professional. And another person says, I would say casual because of no tie.
Okay, okay.
And the button on top too is not tied, so it looks relaxed.
Yes, yes, good observations. But can you think of a position or organization where this would be an acceptable or desirable attire for an interview? Any ideas? Any ideas?
Fashion industry.
Fashion industry, okay.
Advertising.
Advertising, right? Tech, sure. Design, kind of position, social media, right, definitely. Okay, next image, please. Hey, how about this one? Professional or not, and why?
The jean.
This
Uh-huh.
doesn't look that formal, so probably not so professional at all.
Okay,
It depends on the industry.
exactly, that's the point. It depends, right? Less professional, that's the majority opinion, but can you imagine where it could be appropriate? What kind of a position or industry?
Like if you worked in a marketing agency in New York or a big city like that,
Yeah,
more
sure.
fashion forward.
Yes, definitely.
Or you probably will actually see your clients face to face, but they see you either through email, text, social media, or anything else, but they don't see your actual appearance.
Okay, all right. How about retail?
It depends on the store. If it's a higher end store, then they would have to dress more corporately and not with tank tops
Okay.
or distressed and painted jeans.
Okay, but dress and painted jeans could be expensive brand name, you know, $300 jeans, right? So if the store is selling that, you really want to match the culture, right? Okay, next and last image. Okay, and how about this one, professional or not? Confused. Okay, how about the chat?
To be in an environment that accepts tattoos, because I know some jobs don't allow their employees to show tattoos.
Point. Is it professional?
I think so, because it has shirt is really tight and hair is.
Okay, okay. Someone is saying it could be for hairstylist or tattoo artist or a bartender, definitely. So if you're like event club manager, that would be a great attire. How about, okay. Yes, some believe that tattoos are unprofessional. We know that. So that, you know, this is the individual decision we make when deciding kind of career path, right? But there are several different industries where it could be appropriate. Another one that when I showed it to my students, they mentioned maybe like expensive car dealer, right? You deal with clients like supercars, selling supercars, things like that. Another setting where this could be really professional. Okay.
It seems as though tattoos are becoming more accepted, even in professional environments.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Yes, I mean, it must be regional as well. I saw less tattoos, for example, when I lived in New Jersey and went to college in New York than here in California. So this might also be regional in the US. But the point I was trying to make is that is one kind of set of recommendations, general recommendations that I showed on the previous slide, what is business formal and business casual, but we also need to pay attention that there are differences in terms of organizational culture. The main idea when you're going to an interview or a job fair is slightly overdressed is what we should aim for, okay? So even if you're going for a job in IT where IT people wear slacks and t-shirts every day, you should still wear a little bit on the more professional polished side. Okay, and next slide, please. Okay, and this is the last slide I will cover. So the top interview questions. I have 4 here, and because of the sake of time, about yourself, which prompts for an elevator pitch in a moment. However, what I would recommend is look at the Career Center website, look up top 10, top 20 interview questions and how to answer them, not just the questions. You want to go through them, have your answers prepared. And this is also something that Speaking Center can help with, right? Mock interviews. So question, why should we hire you? You should evaluate your qualifications for a position and provide specific evidence as they relate to the job you've applied for. When you're going to a job interview or a job fair, have a resume or a cover letter or both with you so you can hand to answer what is your greatest weakness. Try to not be a cliche and say, I don't have any, or say something like, I'm a perfectionist, because it's not very genuine. Try to think of an example that may be either not very relevant to the job you're applying, or think of an example that you've already received some criticism, some feedback in your work, and you can bring this up, what steps in order to improve this weakness. Another question, what are your career plans, short and long range? This question, even though you might actually need this internship for 3 months, you want to really do research about what the company does. What are sample job titles you will be interested in pursuing, or projects, okay? Internship, it's kind of like a vetting of applicants, and frequently you have foot in the door, you have high chance of being hired, even if it's a 3-month internship. Another point is that even though your plans might be to have business in 5 years from now and you just need some experience, is to present your long-term growth within that company. So present that long-term orientation and career path within the company you're applying. All right, so this is, now that I've presented you with some tips on dress for success for interviews and some sample interview questions, we'll have Dr. Chan leader pitch.
Just let me know.
Thank you so much. All right, so now let's delve into elevator pitch. So what is elevator pitch? Your elevator pitch is going to be your opportunity to really market your accomplishments or your experience. And this is going to be really useful when you need to talk to a recruiter, for example, in the next week during the career fair. But then you may be curious, why does pitching my personal story have something to do with the elevator? So the idea behind this is that you need to pitch your personal story in a really short period of time. For example, you are riding an elevator with someone. Typically, it's going to be about 30 seconds, and definitely it's going to be within 1 minute. And one thing I'm going to say that for the elevator pitch, it's not just one thing fit all. It's not just about, hey, I create an elevator pitch and then I'm going to use it in all of the setting. This is not the case. The thing that we want to slightly modify the content of our elevator pitch, depending on what is the scenario, depending on who is the person that you're talking to, and also what is the position that you're going to pursue. Go to the next slide. All right, so next I'm going to give you a structure of how we're going to create an elevator pitch. And here I'm going to use the handout of the Career Center to walk through the process of creating an elevator pitch. And typically, an elevator pitch is going to consist of 6 components. So could you please show me the first one? Okay, so the first step when you deliver your elevator pitch is that you want to introduce yourself. So what is your name? What is your major? What is the university? And what is the degree that you're going to get? This is straightforward. But then usually I'm going to lead to the information with a hook that's going to grab people's attention. For example, you can make short statements such as, I want to get your thoughts on something, or I'm curious about what you're going to say. And then those short statements is going to grab people's attention. You're going to hook people because you have already told them that, hey, I want to get your thoughts after my elevator pitch. And this means that they cannot just zone out while you're pitching, because otherwise you're going to miss the important context to offer their thoughts back to you. So if I'm going to first set the stage and introduce myself, then my message is going to sound something like, hi, it's really nice to meet you. My name is Ying Chen, and I want to get your thoughts on something. So now I'm a senior student majoring in marketing, and I'm going to graduate from CSUSB with a Bachelor of Arts degree. So this is going to be your self-introduction. This is how you're going to set the stage. And the second step is that we're going to share with the other person what is going to be our relevant experience. And your relevant experience can be your work experience, can be your academic experience, maybe your experience of being involved into student organizations, your volunteer experience, or even your community engagement. So for instance, maybe I'm going to say that on campus, I'm a marketing assistant for the Speaking Center at JHBC. So this is the second step. And in the third step, what you're going to share is going to be your skills that you feel is most relevant for what the position are requiring. And ideally, you also want to share 1 or 2 examples for your accomplishment that's going to showcase your skill. And here probably I'm going to say that, so one of my strongest skills is to manage the social media account. Especially, I helped the Speaking Center increase their Instagram followers by about 23%. So you identify one of your skills, and you also let people know what is a concrete accomplishment. So now you have already set the stage, and you have already shared what is your experience and your skill. And then in the next step is what you're going to identify what's your goal. So what is your interest area in your career and why you're interested in that? And reflecting your goal is going to let the recruiters know what are your intentions, your motivations, and your interests. So for instance, you may say that I especially enjoy creating the content for social media because it's going to leverage my creativity. This can be really short, but then you need to identify what are you really interested in. And next, we want to let the recruiter know what are we wanting to get out from the conversation or from this networking event or whatever. So maybe you're going to let the other person know that, hey, I'm looking for an internship position, or you let the other person know that you're looking for a full-time position. And ideally, you should also identify what's going to be the expected timeline. So you're going to say that currently I'm looking for a full-time position in marketing in the summer of 2023. And in the last step, I'm going to introduce how you're going to close your elevator pitch, which is you want to ask a story to the recruiter. And asking the story is really important because then you can engage the other person. You can keep the conversation going after your self-introduction. So that's going to be the overall of the elevator pitch. And if I'm going to put everything together to deliver an elevator pitch, then my message is going to sound something like, hi, it's really nice to meet you. My name is Ying Chen, and I really want to get your thoughts on something. So right now, I'm a senior student majoring in marketing at SUSB. I'm going to get my Bachelor of Arts degree in May 2023. And on campus, I'm a marketing assistant for the Speaking Center. And one of my strongest skills is to manage the social media account. Specifically, I increased the social media followers for the Speaking Center by about 23%. And I especially enjoy creating the content for the social media posts because it's going to leverage my creativity. And currently, I'm looking for a position in marketing in the summer of 2023. And I'm curious about what is your hiring process consists of and how I can follow up with you. So that's it. So that's going to be about 1 minute. That's how you're going to talk to the recruiter. And then one tip I want to offer to you is that it is always important that you're going to tailor your elevator pitch accordingly, depending on the scenario. And then the thing is that when I'm talking about customization, I'm talking about two things. So the first thing is that you should always pull up a different experience, depending on who is the person that you're talking to and what is the position that you want to pursue. You talk to a manager, and this person is going to hiring a marketing position with the major responsibility of organizing the community event, then probably I'm going to share my relevant experience as one of my strongest skill is to plan an event. Specifically on campus, I helped the Speaking Center organize 3 workshops, with each workshop attracting over 50 attendees. On the other hand, let's say if you're going to talk to a recruiter and the recruiter is going to hire someone who is more related to the social media specialist, then in that situation, probably I'm going to pull up my experience related to social media management. So you may say that one of my strongest skills is to driving the growth for social media. Specifically, I increased the followers of the Instagram account for the Speaking Center by about 22%. So this is how you're going to do the tailorization for one area. And the second area you can do the tailorization a little is when you're asking a question at the very end. Again, depending on who is the person that you're talking to during a social networking event. So for instance, let's say I'm going to talk to someone who's going to work for a company that I really want to land in my dream job. And I know that this person is not going to make the hiring decision. Then probably I'm just going to get this person's advice. I will ask this person. So I'm curious, are there any suggestions that you can offer to me so that I can enhance my chance to get a job in your organization? But on the other hand, if I'm going to talk to a recruiter and this person is going to make the hiring decision, then probably I'm going to slightly change my question a little bit. Probably I'm going to say that, hey, I'm curious about what is the next step for me to apply for your organization and how I can follow up with you. So you're going to change the question depending on the specific scenario. And so now we have talked about what is going to be an overall structure to create an elevator pitch. Then the next thing is that we're going to have an opportunity that you're going to really create your own elevator pitch. And here we're going to share the handout that is used by the Career Center. And then you can also find out a template that you can use in order to create your elevator pitch. So how about we can have this exercise and activity for about 5 minutes. And after the 5 minutes, then I'm actually going to be curious to hear what's going to be your elevator pitch if you're willing to share. Okay, so I'm going to share the link to the template. Elevator pitch. Okay. Let's see. You are online, then you can find a link to a file, and then the file is going to include the template for you to create an elevator pitch. So try your best to fill out what is going to be your self-introduction, what is going to be your relevant experience, what is going to be your skills that you want to highlight, what is your goal, and what are you wanting to get out from the conversation. Yeah, that would be also great.
Okay, great.
We're going to have about 5 minutes so that you can work on your own.
Okay, great. So we'll resume the workshop in 5 minutes. So please go ahead and take your time to work on this elevator pitch.
Then if you don't want to. You made it, I don't know.
I believe it.
Bend down. Never had to do that. That's true. That was my first time. Yeah, serious. Yeah. But now I know. Learn something new every day. Watch her. See, she's gonna click on that little USB. Those are 3 questionnaires. Resume, assignment, sheet. Resume, this one. Yes. Please. Thank you.
Is it sharing the screen or is it sharing that?
Yeah, I need.
Still straightforward. Yeah, really straightforward.
I just minimized it.
Visually.
I minimized it so that.
You're.
All right, so I'm curious, does any of the students would like to share what's going to be your elevator pitch sound like? Does any volunteers would like to share?
Alyssa wants to volunteer. Go ahead, Alyssa. You can
Right.
share her.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, I'm pulling it up here because I kind of typed it out. Bear with me. All right, so my elevator speech is, so hello, my name is Talisa Horton. Are you guys able to hear me just fine?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so my name is Talisa Horton and I am a first-year graduate student pursuing a degree in marketing and human resources. I'm looking to have a career in either marketing or human resources because I enjoy both being creative and also having a profound impact on the progress of people and organization. Recently, I worked as a training delivery coordinator where my job was to onboard and coordinate training for new hires, where I was able to develop skills such as business communication, presenting projects, and organizing data. I'm most confident about my skills in data analysis, creativity, and project management. I'm inspired by the role of being a social media manager because it would allow me to capitalize on my love for technology and connecting with people. Do you have suggestions or advice to someone who is entering a new field and wants to secure an internship?
All right, thanks for Lisa. First of all, I really like that you put everything nicely together. Specifically, you identify what's going to be your education background, what is your interest in pursuing something, and also what are the relevant experience. And I also like the fact that at the end, you ask a question for the other person because it's going to show that, hey, I want to engage a conversation with you. It also shows your effort to really have a chat with that will only have a one-sided conversation. So good job. And I'm hoping that you can apply the same kind of the elevator pitch in the next week when you're talking to a recruiter. Thanks for sharing, Talisa. Actually, we have also a prize for you. So for the students who share your elevator pitch, you're actually going to receive some goodie items from the from the Speaking Center. And then you can pick up the goodie items from the Department of Management, which is located in JB 461. Okay, all right, so and once again, Talisa, thanks for sharing your pitch. And next, to actually to move on because of the time. Just move on. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap everything up because of the time limit. So landing a dream job is going to require a combination of many factors, including that you want to polish your interview skills, you want to dress professionally, and you also want to deliver a strong elevator pitch. And in order to support your success, the Speaking Center, next slide. The Speaking Center is here to help you. So we're going to have the communication consultant who's going to offer the feedback to your responses to interview questions, to offer the suggestions to better your elevator pitch. And we can also conduct a mock interview. So in order to make a reservation with the Speaking Center, so please scan this QR code. And then we're also going to share the reservation link in the chat box. So for the appointment for the Speaking Center, each session is going to be about 45 minutes. And we also offer a combination of both Zoom as well as in-person consultations. And with all that being said, that please go ahead, dress for success, and also polish your interview skills, deliver a really strong elevator pitch, let your professionalism shine, and then your next dream job is going to be awaiting for you. Thank you so much. All right, so that you may have about the interview, about the dressing, about the elevator pitch. All right, and thank you everyone. So then we're going to have Professor Mel to bring us the strategies to prepare a resume.
Okay, so I'm going to mostly look over here where there are people, because this is so bizarre. Okay, I'm gonna set a timer just to ensure that I don't go over time. So I've done this in 30 minutes. In the past, I'm gonna see if I can actually make the magic happen in 20 minutes. So here we go. Give me 1 second. All right, hello. I am Mel Bakeman. I have been a faculty member here for 25 years. So I've been doing this for quite some time. One of my favorite things to go over specifically are resumes and all things resume related. I try to stay at the cutting edge of resume writing, resume presentation, because I enjoy it, but also rarely can a professor have a profound impact on a student's actual life. You know, you guys get so much theory as students. This is something that is practical application that you will be using day in and day out in order to secure hopefully the career position of your dreams. And so it's really neat to be part and parcel to that process. Molly is going, those of you, I kind of treat this as a workshop. So if you have any specific questions as we go through, please feel free to shout out and I will answer them as we go through the information. If you wouldn't mind bringing it, awesome. So this is one sample of thousands of samples available to you in order to utilize. The one thing that I stress to every single one of you, never has there been a time where resumes have been more dynamic than today. 20 years ago, when I used to teach this, it was far more regimented than it is now. It is an ever-changing, dynamic, awesome document. And if you have one that looks antiquated, if you have one that doesn't have the bells and whistles and that visually looks good, you may very well get passed over. And so for me, as an instructor, it's incredibly exciting. For you as a student, it's incredibly intimidating. So let's go through and talk about ways that ways that you can express yourself beautifully on your resume, but also to hopefully dispel some of the nerves associated with, well, is it good enough? Does it look good enough? First and foremost, remember resumes are discipline specific, all right? And so where you may have a marketing major who is hardcore, gosh, they've got their photo on there, it does everything so beautifully, and yours looks more like that, that's okay. If you're going into human resources, this is perfectly appropriate and it looks good for HR. Just like Professor Boyras showed you the 3 different images and said, you know, is this person professional, is this person professional? Every single one of us should be saying, depends on the industry, depends on the industry, depends on the industry. Because I'm a professor at a university, but I also work for the courts for capital murder cases. So I'm a jury consultant on capital murder cases. I write opening and closing statements, and I interview people constantly. And as we can plainly tell, I am tattooed. Would I have done that when I was? Probably not. But as I got older, I started to do things the way I wanted to do things, and things got easier. All right. So let's go through, only because we are on a time crunch. Please know that I can put my information in the chat. If any of you want to go over your resumes with me specifically, I'll do that. You can also visit the JHBC Professional Writing Office, which hopefully I can put that in the chat as well. But let's go ahead and talk about a few things. First, I get asked all the time, length. I hear this all the time, my resume should only be 1 page long. That is absolutely untrue. This all happened as a result of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was fantastic. Yes, he was a dynamic human being and did all kinds of things. And Steve Jobs had the luxury of picking and choosing what he wanted to put on his resume because he was already a well-known human. And so Steve Jobs can take out things and people still know it's Steve Jobs, right? We all go, it's Steve flipping Jobs, okay? For the rest of us, we're getting at the wall and seeing what is going to stick, right? And you never know what's going to stick. You never know what's going to be attractive to an interviewer. So I go back to industry specific, and it depends on what you're doing within that industry. Some industries will beget a single page document. Other industries will beget a much longer document. If you're going into public administration, it can be 3 pages long. It can be 4 pages long. It starts to skirt the line of a curriculum vitae. I bring up the language associated with a resume because it's important to understand. A curriculum vitae is where the concept of the resume originally stems from. And a curriculum vitae is basically Latin for your life's work. What have you done thus far on this planet that makes you special for this particular job? All right. And so a curriculum vitae, and you should know what it is as graduate students, because it's something that you are moving toward. A curriculum vitae is a much longer typically a much longer document. There are no guidelines or rules associated with length, but there are some guidelines and rules associated with qualifications to be on a curriculum vitae. That includes education, a minimum of a master's degree, and typically a minimum of 10 years experience within your field. In addition to that, conference presentations, articles that you've written, things that make you unique and dynamic within your industry. Basically that you are at the top or the leader in your industry. And so why does that matter? Well, it matters because when you're putting your resumes together, which most of you are still on because you haven't got that master's degree yet, you need to think about it. It's my life's work. What have I done up until this point that makes me unique and dynamic and special compared to the other people who are going to be applying for this job? That's why we get into the importance of making it look beautiful, making it look like a professional document. Just like we dress professionally and we present ourselves in a professional way, so too should this paper or multiple sheets of paper look good. All right, so continuing on here, some things that I want to touch on. As you can see up at the top, I'm Melissa Bateman. I go by Mel, so in my quotation marks, I've got Mel, and you will know physical address is missing. That is seen. It used to be you never did it, or 10% of the population would omit their address, and now I teach it almost exclusively to omit your address. That's not to say if you want to keep your address on there, you certainly can. However, taking it off does a number of things. First of all, people don't make assumptions about you, about where you live, okay? People also don't make assumptions about you about where you're willing to move to, because people will see you're in the Inland Empire, but you're planning on moving to LA. You're applying at jobs in LA. They see that you live out in the Inland Empire, and they're going to assume, oh, she's always going to be stuck in traffic, or he's always going to be stuck in traffic. I don't want this candidate. All right. And so little do they know you're moving out there. Well, people make determinations about us without asking questions, right? And so that's another reason to omit it. And then, of course, we've got the personal safety element. It is 2023, and the world's gone a little bit insane. All right, so that is the reason for some of the reasons associated with the physical address. You may certainly list it if you still want. Mode of them communicating with you, you are good to go. All right. If you uppercase your headers, so too must you uppercase your name. So you'll notice skills, professional summary, personal background. You can list those headers. Whatever sets you apart from the herd are the headers that you should be utilizing. So if your education is the thing that you are the proudest of, and during that education, as we heard from Professor King, talking about setting yourself during that elevator pitch and talking about what you've done that's made you special, so too should those headers include those special items. So as you can see, it's kind of a totality of an entire pitch, right? And so make those headers the things that you are the proudest of. So if you're the most proud of your education, go ahead and stick your education first. Or figure out, does your industry require you to have a master's degree in order to move forward? If the answer is yes, first. If the answer is no, they value experience, then you're most likely going to put experience first. You may end up putting a skills section and have your skills section listed first. This is your own unique page or multiple pages. You arrange it in the way that you see fit, that you think best sells you, okay? I went ahead and listed some things. You can list those hard and soft. You can. If you increase sales by 10%, you absolutely want to list. Anytime that you can quantify something, please quantify something. However, if quantification of items makes you nervous or makes you twitch out a little bit, then leave it off. You have to be able to interview confidently based upon this document. And so I've had other students come to me and they've said, you know, my professor wants me to quantify every single thing. Well, sometimes that makes sense if you can quantify. If you can't quantify, don't. But please hear me. If you can, please include it. All right. If you can show how you increase something at your current workplace, or you may not have your workplace to work from, you may use school, right? Just because it isn't out in the real world, quote unquote, that's just such a weird concept to me, the real world, like we're in some kind of weird encased bubble and we're not real. So if you quantified something, if you increased the numbers of members with the master's club or there's a honor society, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, if you did something spectacular in order to get onto that, you can quantify it, please absolutely do quantify it. All right, continuing on here, you can opt to use paragraph form. The choice is entirely up to you. Again, we go to industry specific. If you are going into finance, if you're going into accounting, the likelihood that you're going to bullet things out. Now you can bullet and then have a paragraph of information below that. It really depends. If you're going into marketing, you may use paragraph style. It really depends on what you're going into. So again, research is key here. You're going to want to look and see what's out there. Use the internet in all of its fantastic capabilities to make you the best and brightest in terms of how you look on the page. We talked about education versus experience, which one goes first. If education is integral for you to move forward within your industry, you're going to want to list that education first. If it doesn't matter, or if it's secondary or tertiary, and the first thing they look at is those skills that you have and your experience within the industry, then you're going to want to list education after those items. Make sure you correctly, this happens unilaterally across the board. It doesn't matter if it's undergrad student, it doesn't matter if it's graduate students. The name of this institution is California State University, San Bernardino. It's not of San Bernardino, it's not in San Bernardino, it's not at San Bernardino, it's on top of San Bernardino, it's none of those things. It is California State University, San Bernardino. Know your also know your degree title. What master's degree are you earning? And be sure that you list it correctly, right? Very, very important. If you have to abbreviate things out, CSU, San Bernardino. Because the problem is, if you put CSUSB and you're applying in Orange County, LA County, Ventura, where do they think you went to school?
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara, thank you so much. And it's not that California State University, San Bernardino is not fantastic. We are not in Santa Barbara. Because if we were, we would all have a lot more money. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, so there we go. If you did something special, high school, I still see graduate students put high school on there. You're going to want to let go of high school, right? Let it go. It's time to let it go. However, that doesn't mean you abandon if you did something fantastic in high school, or if you're planning on taking off your bachelor's degree, or if you're planning on taking off your associate's degrees. You can do that. So much flexibility in this document now, it's bananas. Don't abandon it, don't leave it, put it somewhere else, put it under a different header, right? You have all the flexibility in the world, okay? Experience, professional experience, paid positions. If you did an internship, this is incredibly important. Remember, anything that gets housed underneath the header, the very first gets the majority of the eye contact. So if you are presently doing an internship in the industry that you're planning on going into, go ahead and use a header as internship, right? Don't embed it under experience because it may get lost. And it may be the most pertinent thing that you want them to know. Remember, you guide this. You are the captain of your ship. This is your ship. What do you want your ship to look like? All right. Let's see here. How far do you go back? This is something that comes up with graduate students. The general rule of thumb is 10 years. Okay. But that's not to say that you can't go further. If it's something that works nicely, it dovetails nicely into what you're going into in the future. Or that's not to say you can't go less time, because what you did prior to this, you're having a complete job change. And you want to show all the things that you're presently doing right now in your master's program and what you're doing with your internship and what you're doing to show that you're an emerging leader in this industry. Also, time away that has changed exponentially. Time away, it used to be people never talked about time away. If you had children You pretended like you didn't. We have changed so dramatically associated with time away. People do all kinds of things. We are far more dynamic than we ever were in the past. So you can list something. If you did something, if you were in the industry, then you left to have children, you left to travel the world, you left to pursue a business venture. You were gone and now you're back in the industry. The language that you use for that now is personal sabbatical, all right? And you just list it out right underneath that experience. It is 100% okay. It is not unheard of because people are going to ask if you have a huge gap in employment, if you've got a 2-year gap in employment, people are going to wonder, and then they're going to start making assumptions. Go ahead and let them know, personal sabbatical. Now it's up to you how much you want to divulge. You can certainly say personal sabbatical and raise 2 children from infancy to 10 years old and ensure their mental, spiritual, emotional, physical well-being. Great, fantastic. No one bats an eye and they move right on through it. Okay, as long as you explain what you're doing. And then finally, the activities, awards, internships, again, anything. You should never leave. I always call the resume valuable real estate. This is your valuable real estate. And this is the thing where they may remember your face, they may not. And so this is the thing that's going to connect them to you. All right. And hopefully they remember the whole package, what we've talked about here today. Hopefully they remember the whole package, but if not, that you've got it here. And so never leave something on the table or off the table that you really wanted to put on the table. So if that means that you go onto a second page, then so be it. You go on to a second page. If that means you maybe tweak the format a little bit to make it happen, then tweak the format a little bit to make it happen. As you can see, I expanded my margins. I opened up my margins to 0.5 instead of 1-inch margins all the way around because I needed to fit more information. So tweak your margins. If you have 1 or 2 lines that falls onto the next page, now it's time for you to tweak your margins to make it fit onto one. Or if you're like, nah, I really like to include this item, this information. Okay, now we're going to make our margins maybe a little bit bigger. Maybe we're going to make our headers a little bit bigger and we're going to slide everything down. So page 2 becomes actually a page and a half. Right, so that's where we get dynamic and tricky with our margins. And then the final thing that I'll leave you with, especially for graduate students, new terminology, relatively new. I've been teaching it for 5 years, but it is still relatively new. And that's that references quite some time now. It is now assumed that you will give your references, that they don't have to ask you for your references. What it's been replaced by down here at the bottom. Some positions or some schooling have been omitted for length or relevance. So for those of you who have a job change and you don't really want to go into the thing that you did for 6 years, then don't go into the thing that you did for 6 years. Say some positions have been omitted for length or some positions have been omitted for relevance. We never want to lie on a resume, really bad form. You don't want to do that. It will catch you up every single time. Line on there. They can say, oh, what have you omitted? Well, prior to pursuing my master's degree, I was working in retail as a retail clothing manager. And although I learned a lot of valuable skills from that position and things that I take with me today, I ultimately really to pursue blank, right? Nobody's going to look at that almost done. Nobody's going to look at you crooked-eyed. Nobody's going to think that you're weird if you explain it in a professional and intelligent way, right? And then finally, the thing that I want to stress to you, I always say to my students, resumes are like a fingerprint, okay? We are all unique and dynamic people, just like our fingerprint. And you will get a million different opinions on how to put a resume together. And you will literally pull out your hair going, I don't know which one is right. I don't know which one is right. Right? So do your research. Canva is a fantastic tool. Back in the day, I've been teaching for a long time. Back in the day, we used to have to format all the stuff. Now Canva does it all for you beautifully. And so find a format that you like, then start really cobbling together the language that best sells you, that best represents you. And then make sure that you're proud of it. If you can speak intelligently about it and you are proud of the document that you've presented, you simply cannot go wrong. Okay? All right, any questions from my live people? Any questions from my live people who are in the vortex? Or is everybody good?
I have a question. For a long time, it did seem like one page was the standard.
It
We didn't
was.
want to go over that, but it sounds like you're saying you can go over that.
Yeah.
But is there a length limit? Do you want to?
Typically speaking, again, industry specific, like Professor Monty Van Wart blew my mind was blown because I was sitting down talking to him and we were going over public administration. And he said, well, Mel, you can have it be more than 2 pages long. I was like, no. Like, yes, you can. He goes, public administration, we're okay with it. And I was like, what? What do you say? And so it really is industry specific. Generally speaking, the general rule of thumb is 2 pages is the max. However, there are industries that allow it. If you can fit it on a page, fit it on a page. But if you start abandoning important information, go on to a second page.
Makes sense.
There's a question about font size.
Obviously, we want to change up our font size associated with our headers. The thing that should stand out most on the page is your name. And so I typically have my font for body text at either 11 or 12. I think 12 is a little bit too big. And so I do it at 11. I do my headers at 14, and then I do my name at 16 or 18. Right, as long as you have some distinguishing characteristics associated from separating out body text, headers, name, you're good to go.
Right. I think there's another question here. If you had to say, are functional resumes valued more than chronological in today's job market? Especially when you're entering a whole new field.
That's a great question. The thing about a functional resume as opposed to a reverse chronological, a functional allows you narration where you're telling a story about yourself. And so, especially for those people who are intimidated at job changes, this gives you an opportunity to kind of explain yourself. But I would say in that interview process, make sure that you're practicing out how you're going to articulate your job change. And I've had students who do it seamlessly, and then I've had students who really struggle. Excuse me. I had a student once who was pursuing his master's degree here, and he was coming from archaeology. He was off doing archaeological digs. That was his passion. And then he said, I decided to change because I was sick and tired of being dirty all the time and not really having a home. And I was like, oh. And he was having a heck of a time bridging the gap from his education to this new pursuit. And he was going into finance, and you can't really find two that are so different. But I said, they are different. They're vastly different, but they have some similarities. And I said, maybe you should choose a functional resume where you're kind of explaining how the similarities and why you're moving where you're moving to. And so, again, I hate to say this, but it is discipline specific, but it also is a comfort level. If a functional, and talking about your functions, feels more comfortable to you, and you can really riff on yourself, then go with functional. The only times I probably would avoid functional, or I would meld them together and do a hybrid functional reverse chronological, would be accounting or finance. Only because they're so used to just seeing quick information because they have so many resumes to go through, that you may very well do that reverse chronological and then follow it up with a functional paragraph talking about yourself after the entry. And that's how I would bridge that.
If I may.
Absolutely.
So I actually transitioned fields at one point, And I included my previous experience on the resume, and in the interview, I took the job description and I said, this experience that I had previously is this is how I'm going to meet your needs here.
Right.
And so I connected the dots
Absolutely.
in my interview, and that got me the job.
Absolutely. And you can also do that in your cover letter. You can say, I'm moving from this industry to this industry. I've learned many valuable skills in blank, and I'm moving into Y, and these are the reasons why I'm moving into Y. Likewise, I mean, I've been teaching for 25 years. I now work for the courts, and I had to explain to attorneys why I'm moving from teaching into the law. And so very similar. I talked about all the ways in which I can help them falling back on my writing skills and my fantastic personality.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Here's your $20. Yes.
The work experience and education experience, should they be listed in time order?
Typically, we go in reverse chronological order.
Right, so most
For every
recent.
Most recent going down in every single category. It's always fascinating to me. People will do it for their experience, but they won't do it for their schooling. You always want to lead off underneath that header. Remember, you see a header, the very first thing under that header gets the most eyeball time. And so you always want to put, same thing with awards. If you've gotten an award, the award that you got last month, right? That's the first one listed. So you are currently pursuing your MBA at California State University, San Bernardino. And then below that will be your bachelor's degrees, right? So remember, every single category, the most current thing gets listed first. And then the categories, you think about the categories in an intelligent way. Which category is the most awesome part of you? That's the one that gets listed first, because I always say you have 7 seconds to make a good impression on paper. So think about it. Okay, and it happens just like that. I used to work for a lady when I worked at Loma Linda University Medical. She'd literally look at it and start 2 piles. And I'm like, what are you doing with the piles? Oh, those are being shredded, and these I'm going to take a little bit more time with. And I was like, you're so mean. She's like, it's not personal. And I'm like, okay, I'm scared of you. You're mean. But that's how she separated people out. Did it look good? And if she saw a typo. If it looked good, no typo, you went into the state stack. If it didn't look good, and she'd just take a pile. If she had 3 left and it was a pile of 50, 50 would go right in the shredder. She'd have me shred people. I was like,
I guess that's a lesson in double, triple, quadruple check your resume, and then check it too.
Somebody who knows more than you.
Yes, exactly.
You know, don't get your great aunt who went to school and graduated in 1952. And although she may be fantastic, she may not be the best resource for this process.
She could be very encouraging.
Whatever. Don't contradict me.
So, and another tip for proofreading is to actually read backwards, seriously. So if you're
drink here.
Yeah. So when you're reading your resume, read a line instead of course left to right, read it from right to left, because then your brain sees it differently and you might identify mistakes.
I don't even understand what you mean.
Oh, okay. So let's look at the bottom of Mel's beautiful resume tutorial here. So it says, the bottom line says, take the time and make it your own. You would read own, your, it, make, and time the take. Not out loud, but in your head, actually read it backwards, because your brain can then identify if something is misspelled.
Okay, that is a tip. Mess me up, but if it works for you,
Oh, we have a question here.
Yes. May absolutely put in a LinkedIn profile. Some people host their own web pages. Absolutely 100%.
And question, GPA, should it be stated?
GPA depends on what your GPA is. Yeah. I was reluctant with that because I've had fantastic students who barely eke by, and I've had really kind of droll students who are 4.0 students. People, that's one nice thing about society, we've shifted dramatically away from that. Because if you've done all kinds of extracurricular activities on school, you work full-time, you have 2 kids, and your GPA suffers as a result, but you're this fantastic person, then maybe you omit the GPA, but you talk up all of the ways in which you are this fantastic human being. The general rule of thumb is a 3.5 or better in your discipline, is the general rule of thumb.
Yeah, I would say leave it off. I mean,
I'm a big believer in leaving it off.
yeah,
I just, some people quantify and that's proud of it. And if, you know, in your master's, your bachelor's, everything's been a 4.0 and you're proud of that, then absolutely. You know, that maybe I'm just a hater. Right?
I'm not seeing any other questions. Does anybody have any more questions here in person or on Zoom? On Zoom, you're welcome to put those in the chat.
Yeah, and would you mind putting the professional writing office?
I already did.
Oh, you already did, okay. You can visit the professional writing office for all things writing, the Speaking Center for all things oral presentation and structure and structure. Thank you for your time, everyone, for myself and the other 2 professors. And I think that's it.